Today we explore one of the most critical questions facing the world. What comes next for the Middle East after the recent war between Israel and Hamas? The region now stands at a genuine crossroads. Will events spiral into a wider confrontation involving regional powers and even global players? Or is there still room for diplomacy and restraint? When the war broke out, Western governments moved quickly to show support for Israel. The United States deployed aircraft carriers to the region, European leaders expressed firm solidarity, and much of the Western media repeated a clear message: Israel has the right to defend itself. For a brief moment, it seemed that Israel was fully shielded by the most powerful nations in the world. But as the fighting dragged on, the humanitarian situation in Gaza became increasingly dire. International relief agencies warned of severe shortages of food, medicine, and water. Images of destroyed neighborhoods and reports of mounting civilian casualties began to shift global opinion. Across Europe and the United States, large protests filled the streets, calling for an end to the fighting and criticizing unconditional support for Israel. Western governments suddenly faced growing pressure at home, caught between their traditional alliances and the voices of their citizens. The conflict also spilled beyond Gaza. Cross-border incidents and strikes raised concern among neighboring states. Qatar emerged as a central player, both as a mediator and as a state closely tied to the political currents of the conflict. This raised a troubling question. Could the confrontation expand and pull in countries that had so far avoided direct involvement? For Israel, the most important factor remains the support of the United States. For decades, Washington has provided immense military aid and diplomatic cover at the United Nations and beyond. This backing gives Israel confidence and even boldness, since it believes that no matter how harsh the criticism elsewhere, the American safety net will hold. But how long can that last if domestic debate inside the United States grows louder and divisions become sharper? Among the regional actors, Turkey stands out as the country that could change the equation. It possesses one of NATO's largest militaries and wields significant political influence across the Middle East. So far, Ankara has relied on diplomacy, presenting itself as a mediator rather than a combatant. Yet its close partnership with Qatar could become a turning point. If Qatar were to come under severe pressure or even direct threat, Turkey might feel compelled to demonstrate its military strength. The question is whether Turkey will continue its cautious balancing act or decide that a show of force is unavoidable. Looking ahead, several possible futures emerge. One scenario is that the United States continues its unconditional support for Israel. This would allow Israel to pursue its objectives largely unchecked, but it could leave the country more isolated diplomatically as global opinion turns against it. Another scenario is regional escalation, with Turkey, Qatar, and perhaps other states aligning more closely in opposition to Israel, creating a genuine military counterweight for the first time in decades. A third scenario is the internationalization of the conflict. Russia, with its military presence in Syria, may seek to expand its influence. China could act through economic and diplomatic channels, offering alternative partnerships to states looking for distance from the West. In this way, what began as a regional war could transform into another arena of great power competition. The stakes are extremely high. Israel retains strong American support, but faces growing scrutiny abroad. Turkey remains cautious but could emerge as a decisive player if conditions change. Public opinion worldwide, amplified by social media and mass protests, has become more influential than at any point in recent memory. The essential question is whether the region can avoid a larger confrontation that might reshape the Middle East for decades, or whether events are accelerating toward a broader conflict stretching from the Gulf to the Mediterranean and beyond. This is Think Tank Reports. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Which scenario do you think is most likely? And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next analysis.